You're not fucking good for anything else because you can't even hand a fucking ball over because you're stupid.
Well, you can't fucking do that. It's a fucking dog. He's hopeless.
You fucking no. All dogs aren't hopeless. There's heaps of dogs that are a heap smarter than most of the
We
people.
can't be fucking smart in this cunt. It's fucking dumb as a post.
They're just dumb as a fucking dog shit.
His mother's a purebred Kelpie, so fuck if I know.
What's that
Not
got
me
to do with
fuck.
it? It takes fucking 50% genetics, doesn't it?
Fucking, I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
Hang on, fucking, fuck
You
me.
put yourself in it. I don't want to get in there.
No, you're in there. Fuck
no, I'm
you.
not getting in there.
You're famous, you
No,
cunt.
fuck off.
Chris Marsh. Fucking
Yeah, I'm just like Lord Haw-Haw,
talking in. Like who?
Lord Haw-Haw.
Lord of Haw. Who the fuck is Lord of Haw?
Oh, okay. You don't see this is the trouble. No one's got any idea. The reason that I can comment on all this shit is because I've spent a lot of time watching shows about history, and you can just see the cycle going backwards and forwards and round and round, and all this fucking just goes round and round. Lord Haw-Haw was a Nazi sympathiser that sat on the radio and just sprouted all his opinions, but they all said he's a fucking prick, and they hung him because he was guilty of treason because he was a bit unlucky because he was British. We had American citizenship or Canadian citizenship, and he lived in where did he live in? Europe.
In Europe.
Yeah. So all through the war, he was on the side of the Germans, and he was a propagandist, and he used to put all this shit out over the radio. And they decided that because he was still subject to British rules when they eventually caught up with him. They decided he was subject to British. I can't remember all the details now.
Right.
But it was pretty well a good. To be honest, it was a pretty good example of exactly what we're going through now, like where you can't even sit in a different country and have your 2 bobs worth without being.
Which 2 bobs worth? Go.
He
Which 2 bobs
was a supporter of Hitler.
Okay.
So he just sat up there, and just like all the radio propagandists at the time, he just sat there and put his fucking 2 bobs worth in about how the war's going well, we're going to win, this and that and the other. All it's like just stuff that no one had to listen to. No one forced anyone to listen to it. No one had to take any notice of it. It was just, him sprouting lyrical about how good the Nazis were going to be and this and that and the other and whatever.
Yeah.
And I dig the fact that if he was doing it out of England and that you could see an issue with that given what was going on. But the bottom line is that to some extent it's about freedom of speech.
So what is about freedom of speech?
Exactly. And it's
he
wasn't sitting there and he wasn't he was supportive of the fucking pricks that were killing the Jews, but he wasn't doing it. Where do you want to draw the line? I don't know.
It's interesting. Tell me more about his story. More about that story?
In the end, they caught up with him. They hung him. The Pommies hung him.
Yeah, right.
For treason.
What was his name?
Lord Haw-Haw.
Lord Haw-Haw.
What was the actual name? Can't remember now. I'd have to go and look it up.
No, very fucked, eh?
Anyway, are you pushing this out?
Yeah.
It's on, what channel is this on?
Fucking mine.
Now, all right, let's get back to the tail lights.
Yeah, so the small bit of tail lights.
So, the tail lights, as you just reiterated, you're sitting here being paranoid about some copper.
No.
With nothing better to do. Like he hasn't got anything better to do because my work premises got broken into 15 years ago, and no one could be made responsible because one, the identifying handprint that they picked up was on the outside of the window, not the inside of the window. Number 2, said premises weren't fucking secured by a lockable compound and a gate. Number 3, and even the business is the best. We know who the culprit is, but we're not allowed to interview him to find out if he's guilty or not, because he's always pissed and stoned. So we can't interview them pissed and stoned. Right. So we're expected to sit there and not have any disagreement with that type of, leeway regards people doing the wrong thing. But we're expected to sit here and cop the fact that if we have the audacity to have a red hot piece of filament fail in one of our tail lights, it's okay, but the Highway Patrol come along and penalise us, expediently for that, due to, in the end, which is what is a failure of physics and electronics. If you want to get down to the bottom of it, we're expected to suck up ridiculous revenue-raising fines for that.
Yes.
And given the fact that only a matter of, what is it? 20, 45. So it's 55, 65, 70, 75 or 80 years ago. The rules were all totally different due to the fact that there was a war going on and everybody was actually required to turn their lights off or have the money showing in very minor little slits just to preserve security. So now, as I was pointing out before, I'm absolutely sure that there was plenty of people that had car crashes because they couldn't see each other coming due to that issue. But it was a wild fucking area in between the two extremes where I think we could all probably safely exist.
Always.
And the powers that be could probably sit there and use some semblance of their own common sense and discretion when they're dealing with people that are sort of having infractions in some of these relatively minor regulations and rules that we seem, totally indisposed towards imposing on ourselves.
The lady said to me today in the debate, it is so infantile.
Infantile?
Infantile. That you can't understand. That you can't understand.
Who said?
This is some shit on the fucking online.
Well, she's obviously been to university.
Oh, clearly.
Because Johnny Howard told us
none
of us were going to be able to be employable by the time we were 50 unless we went to university to learn how to bloody unblock a toilet. I would say to Johnny Howard right now, go and have a look at some of the stupid fucked up millennials that you fucking caused, Johnny. See if they can actually navigate their way to the toilet without a fucking mobile phone, let alone fucking unblock one.
Oh, fuck. Oh, hang on. I was trying to be serious. You just fucking smashed me. You cunt. And I love it because it's true. Johnny Howard, you fucking idiot.
Swear?
And my mate in this fucking life, you cockhead.
Yeah. No one's going to be employable by the time they're 50 unless they go and do a university course, no matter what they want to do. Because the competition is going to be that hot. The competition for jobs and fucking intelligence is going to be that hot. Yep. Good job, John.
Good job, John. Most millennials don't tie their shoes.
I don't know how old I was How old was I in 1995? 64, 74, 84. I was 30, nearly 30, about 30 years old. And even at that point in time, I looked at that and went, John, I don't know what you've been taking, but you're delusional. Even then. And look, none of this evidence and none of this, was sort of on the board to the point where it is. It's gone much, much further than I thought it ever would. But even then, I could tell. I could tell just from the generation that followed me. And look, I'll have to admit, I've got lots of disappointments in my own generation. We're responsible for it. It's our lot that are responsible for a lot of this. There's no doubt. But for a politician, a little baldy-headed, glasses-wearing politician that in 1975 couldn't even bloody, he couldn't even get support to tie his own shoelace. To sit there and say something like that, and then followed up with the never ever will there be a GST. We won't impose any more taxes on the people. Considering the tax was all supposed to be introduced so they can fund their own retirements anyway, or fund their own, products and services and whatever.
How's that going for you?
Yeah, it's going pretty well for us. We've funded everything, and now the government wants us to have increasingly larger windows over when we can sort of make the decision to take advantage of said retirement. And well, I don't have the exact figures on hand, but I'm pretty sure that the old age pension isn't. Oh, I told you you're a fucker. The old age pension isn't too much more generous, to the said plethora of retired workers that have, to some extent, a lot of whom, not all of whom, but a lot of whom, have actually busted their ass over decades and decades and decades for this country. It's much more generous than it is to the fucking plethora, the plethora of bullshitting, drug-addicted dole-bludgers that have every single trick in the book up their sleeve to find ways to work around said mechanisms to make them constructively, contribute something to the country.
I must ask the next question.
Yeah.
I read the plethora of drug addicts fucking welfare recipients. What about the plethora of drug addict fucking members of parliament?
Oh, yeah, no, we can't count them.
Why?
Well, because they're immune.
Why?
Well, parliamentary privilege, of course. Privilege on that. Parliamentary privilege.
That's right. So, because you're a member of parliament, you can be a drug addict and a fucking useless cunt. Is that what you're saying?
I'd say it's a fucking qualification. I don't know about the drug addicts.
Well, they're all fucking drug addicts.
But it's definitely a qualification to be a fucking idiot, for the most part, with lots of non-common sense and lots of impact, possibly relevant.
Are you trying to suggest that these useless cunts are members of parliament?
Am I suggesting what?
He's suggesting that these useless cunts that are members of parliament.
I'm suggesting that most of them, a lot of them, are products of exactly the type of university educations that Johnny Howard tried to tell us in the mid-90s. It was all going to be required for us to be qualified ditch diggers. Now, I'd put to you that for the most part, anyone who's got a skill for digging a ditch probably hasn't been to university to learn it. And whilst there's probably an argument for the fact that, yes, you probably could put a course together for ditch digging or toilet plunger operation or, any other number of, hair removal from the drain procedures or whatever. If we have to get to the point where we have to have a 3-year university course to achieve these things, I'm a bit sceptical about the potential success for the rest of the following generation. I'm sorry. I'll give you a perfect example. I've got a friend who's a cabler.
You have a face.
I've got a friend. He's not gay or anything because we're both blokes and we don't care about women's rights, really. And to be honest, I'm a bit tired of hearing about women's rights and all the bloody trials and tribulations they have to endure and the misogyny and this and that and the other and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, Christ. Fucking peanuts, Jesus.
All that shit. But anyway, back to the story. This friend of mine, and here's a really good practical example. He's in a room about 100 metres long. Said room had a suspended ceiling. Are you right? Are you all right?
Hey, you fucking tell your story. Yeah, fuck you.
You see, this is the trouble with you.
This is an audience.
The trouble with you
Fuck
fucking millennials is that you fucking can't.
It's all right. No, fuck you.
You've
Go
been
on.
on your university course to be able to eat peanuts and fucking talk at the same time.
Oh, fuck. No, I have.
Turn that real.
That doesn't mean.
I don't need to be identified.
You identified. Fuck off.
Now, anyway, said millennial apprentice was on site with said contractor. Said building has got about a 60, 40, 50 or 60 yard ceiling with, I don't know if you're aware, have you ever seen a suspended ceiling with the push-up panels?
Yeah.
Well, apparently, there's a piece of communications conduit, about a 4 or 6 metre length of communications conduit in the ceiling.
Yeah.
Okay, so the challenge was to get said piece of communications conduit from one end of the ceiling, 40 or 50 metres, to the other end of the ceiling. So this duty was duly passed on to millennial fuckwit, who proceeded to pull ladder, get up ladder, push up single panel, push piece of conduit the 2 or 3 feet that he could actually reach through the the open panel hole.
Hmm.
Drop panel back into place. Move to the next panel or the second or third one up. Go up again. Push up panel. Move piece of conduit along another 2 or 3 feet. And was preparing to go through this tribulation for the whole fucking process of this operation, which was probably going to take about, I don't know, 2 days, I suppose, the way he was fucking going. It was pointed out to said millennial that maybe a more efficient way of fucking achieving this task might have been to get up fucking one end, push up one panel, pull the whole piece of conduit out, bring it down to the opposite end of the hall, and push it up through this another panel at the other end of the hall. And I mean, I don't like to be negative. I hate being negative about, and I don't like to criticise.
Question will be, who the fuck scored said millennial?
What?
Sorry.
Well, obviously the problem was that said millennial hadn't done his.
Who the fuck taught him that? To do it backwards.
Who taught him?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know, but.
Who taught him? Who taught him what?
Well, he taught him how to workload backwards, fuckwit. Nobody obviously said do this in this fucking method.
I would put to you that in the scheme of a relatively balanced upbringing, if said millennial had to, I don't know, turn on a light switch, climb a tree, or do any of the, achieve any of the sort of basic ball task tasks that we all used to take for granted as just being part of normal development.
Yes, no.
He would have had said skill.
My question is no.
Well, so I'm not quite sure if said millennial. I have an element. I have a suspicion that said millennial actually had been to university. I could be wrong about that.
Was, but yes.
Anyway, look, that's just a good example of how to make a job that should take 2 minutes, take 3 hours, due to your own absolute incompetence and inability to even see anything at basic level in the ways of life skills. So, you'll have to excuse me.
I don't excuse you ever.
I not
you fucking amusing as fuck.
for not having, a lot of fucking time to. I can't even believe I'm sitting here wasting this much time talking about it. But anyway.
All right, it was highly amusing.
Yes.
Right.
So now let's get back to the car headlights.
Car headlights.
Yeah.
Only the tail light.
And now apparently it's almost a requirement that you can't be crucified for running up someone's arse in a car unless they've got another 15 red stoplights sitting in the back of the car that are bright enough to blind a couple of aliens on the other side of the hemisphere. Blinkers have to be, they have to be cascading sets of arpeggiated blinkers to be able to indicate the right way around. Any roadwork signs, it's not enough to just have a barricade there that says, that sort of gives the indication that if you drive through here, there'll be something going on. And the lights and the signals from most roadworks and barricades have to be brighter than the sun, so that they actually blind the drivers trying to adhere to the sort of regulations of the road. Look, we're only just beginning to touch the surface.
Well, the rest next week on this episode of fucking
No, I don't know. I didn't know what you want to call it, but anyway, as I say, all I can tell you is that during the war, it was mandatory to not have any lights on, and now apparently it's a hanging offence to fucking have your tail light on.
Fuck.
Nobody seems to be able to sort of get that middle ground. If I was a more negative, cynical person, I'd assume it's all about revenue raising. But I mean, that couldn't be the case, could it?
No, never. Very fucked.